do just that. So we've got our Colossal T-Rex here out of the packaging. We're going to try to lean it against the backdrop out there without knocking over the entire backdrop, which seems to be a little hard to do. It's kind of laying on its face because, as you can see, it is still unassembled. And we've also got ourselves a leg as well as a tail. Now, just due to the massive size of this pile of dinosaur here, I'm going to go ahead and review this in pieces because something that I've been doing lately with like the sauropods, like I did it with the Brachiosaurus, I also did it with the Dreadnoughtus, and it's worked out pretty well for me because my area here is a little bit small when it comes to my review section because I don't really review too many huge figures, and I have a lot of dinosaurs around me, so I kind of need to utilize the space I have for all the different dinosaurs that I have. So my area is a little smaller. It's going to be a little easier for me to take a closer look with it in pieces. Then we'll throw it together and check it out from there, fully completed and put together. So let's jump to a closer look at this right now. So we will begin taking a look here at the head sculpt. Now, again, like I had stated earlier, this figure is just a repaint. There's nothing new to this one as far as the sculpt or anything goes that I'm picking up on, that I'm noticing. Definitely looks to be the same exact, super colossal T-Rex we've had since the beginning of Mattel acquiring the rights for the Jurassic line. So we don't need to take a look at the sculpt. All we need to take a look at is what would be different, and that would be the paint job. And one thing that straight away is very, very different is the fact that this is an extremely dark tone of brown compared to the much lighter brown we had for the previous super colossal T-Rex figures. So you can see that we have this really dark brown for the majority of the face, but we also have a black that's really nicely blending in with those browns. So you have a nice black here darkening around the eye, which I love because that is something you usually see on a JP Rex, is some darkening in the eye socket area. You also have the black running up here along the jawline, up and over the palate, and you have a little black right here. So that actually looks really good, and I like how nice and naturally Mattel has applied that coloration to the figure. And honestly, I must say, it is fairly reminiscent of Rexy as far as like the design that they did there with the kind of black and everything. Like, it's not perfect, obviously. It'd be slightly different shades of browns and stuff like that rather than such dark tones that we have here, but it still looks pretty good, and I actually really quite like the coloration that they've applied. You can also see that we have a yellow eye and a black pupil, and there's a very nice gloss coat on that yellow eye. We have an articulated jaw, of course. Both the upper and lower jaw articulates. You can see the teeth are painted very nicely. They as well have a nice gloss coat, and they're painted with kind of like an off-white. Same deal for the lower jaw. And the entire inside of the mouth sports this really nice kind of like a dark pinkish tone. And that as well has a very nice gloss coat. I'm actually surprised the tongue doesn't really articulate because there's the perfect chance, with the tongue being so huge, that would have been pretty cool to have some articulation in the tongue. But all of the paintwork and everything here on the inside of the mouth also looks really good. And we have paint on the upper and lower jaws there on the inside of the mouth, which is also nice. Up here on the top of the Rex, though, you don't really see too much going on as far as the coloration goes, but there's a little hint of like a black splotchiness there and there. And that's one thing this Rex does seem to have, is some like black splotchy paint. And you'll see that as we move through. Actually, you can see it immediately as we have some here and right here. But looking here briefly over the figure, I normally am not a huge fan of that kind of thing, because sometimes when Mattel adds that, it can look really nice, but a lot of the time it kind of looks more like paint errors. However, this time I actually like it because it kind of gives the figure coloration from head to tail, and that is actually pretty darn cool. But you can see up here on the back of the neck, we start to have the black picking up right here, and it overtakes the entire spinal column here. You can see that as we move along, the entire spinal column remains that black coloration, and you can see it kind of stripes down here as we move along, and that looks really cool. Definitely very Rexy-like as far as that goes, and you can see it continues to do that as we move through the entire figure. We have a little more of that kind of splotchy black showing up here and there. Randomly, this is like super glossy, though. I don't know why. That is like very, very strange that it's so glossy right there. Unfortunately, we don't have painted fingernails. There is a little bit of a gloss coat for the fingernails, but the nails themselves are not actually painted. But you can see even more of that kind of splotchy black, if my camera would focus on it, that splotchy black kind of running through the arm, which also looks good. But as we continue to move back here, you can see again that that dark tone keeps striping down. And you can see it's starting to taper away, though, right here in the hip region, which is a bummer. It would have been nice to have that run the entire way out onto the tail, but it's not the end of the world, I guess, because as we move down the leg, you can see more of that kind of splotchy black showing up here throughout pretty much every area of the leg, and even down here in the calf, shin, everything. But as we move down into the foot, you can even see a little more of it in the foot. But we have painted nails for the foot, which is a huge, huge plus. Really nice, glossy painted nails with a black. Unfortunately, we don't have painted dew claws. It's a little hard to get back there, but we definitely do not have paint on the dew claws. However, we're going to take this part of our Rex out and take a look at the rest. Now we have the opposing leg. You can see more of that black here, and you can see here having the leg disconnected, it actually makes it really easy to get in here and look at it. You can now see that that splotchy black is even in here, so it's like honestly everywhere on the figure, which does, you know, help to add an element of realism, especially in the areas where it doesn't look so bad. Like, you know, it looks fairly decent in some of the areas as far as like skin color. It looks more subtle as far as its application goes, not so, you know, intense like we saw just up there in the neck a minute ago. But you can see the nails are painted really nicely yet again. We now have the opportunity to take a look at the dew claw and see that it is unpainted, unfortunately, but you can see even more of the, again, splotchy blacks showing up all over the place. And then you also have the tail, and this is one thing that is pretty cool about the figure, is due to that kind of splotchy black, you can see that we have more of that coloration out here on the tail. So we have the dark brown, but we also have some of the blacks showing up, and you can see that as we move along here, we have that coloration all the way out, even here to the tip of the tail. I can still see some, like right there at the tip of the tail, some little hints of that splotchy black. You can see a little bit right there, a little bit right there. So that is a huge plus, I think, to this one, because now with that kind of splotchy black all over it, it actually appears to have coloration from head to tail, which is not something you often get when it comes to a Mattel figure. And in fact, I would say the coloration seems to look pretty nice. I don't have the figure together entirely to really get a feel for it, but so far it's probably the nicest version of a Colossal T-Rex we've had, because outside of the dew claw and the fingernails on the fingers, this thing actually has color from head to tail. So here is our Super Colossal T-Rex now fully put together, and I don't think I'll really be able to, you know, show it off and do it justice here inside. I'm going to have to go outside, get some good images in some nice light, because it's just so big that my lights that I have here don't exactly capture how nice it looks. But it does look pretty darn cool overall here when it comes to actually being put together as far as the coloration, the paint application. Everything looks pretty good on this one. Much better, again, in my opinion, than the older ones that we had from Mattel. So I would say this is the superior Super Colossal T-Rex. So if you happen to be a huge fan of the Colossal figures, I definitely recommend getting a hold of this one, because I feel like, again, it's the best version yet. I don't think we need to do any size comparisons, measurements, anything like that, because the Super Colossal T-Rex has been out for a very long time. And at this point, we definitely know what the size of the Super Colossal Rex is. Also, one thing I did fail to mention is we have this light tone here for the lower jaw. That does actually run down here along the underside, disappears down here in the groin region. You can see it disappears right there before it's totally gone. So that would have been nice to have that run the entire length of the tail as well. But regardless, again, it looks pretty cool. We don't really, like I said, need comparisons or sizes or anything. So, we can skip that stuff for this review, because the Colossal Rex is definitely a very well-known figure when it comes to the Mattel line, and at this point I'd like to think everybody knows roughly what the size of this figure is. So this brand new Jurassic World Dominion Super Colossal T-Rex is definitely another fun release, and honestly, in my opinion, it's the best version of the Colossal Rex that has come out so far, and Mattel was so close to making it look really nice. I think the things that could have definitely improved the figure would have been to take that dark black that's running along the back and run that all the way out onto the tail. Like, could you imagine how nice this figure would look with just that little bit of extra paint application? It's amazing the little things that Mattel could do to their products to really improve them and make them easily the best Jurassic products that we've had, and they just for some reason don't do it. And I get, like, you know, they're saving some money by running the paint out onto the tail, but personally, I would prefer that they just did that, put the paint out onto the tail, and maybe increase the price slightly, because I would definitely pick that up, and I'm sure many other people would do the same. Isn't that big of a deal to me to have to pay a little tiny bit extra to get more quality for my figure, rather than pay a little bit less and then get more of a lackluster product. But again, you know, with that in mind, this is still a really nice version of the Rex, because the Paintwork of this one looks really good as far as the dark tones. I think it looks beautiful. A lot of the paint application is really smooth, like specifically up there in the face. It looks great as far as the way that they painted that. And the black running along the back also looks good. And the fact that we have that kind of splotchy black from the head to the tail also looks really cool. It would have been nice to, again, have the darker tone running along the back entirely, but at least we have some of that splotchy black out there under the tail. The coloration on the underside running out onto the tail also could have helped. And the fact that we don't have painted dew claws and no paint for the fingernails. Those are the things that I think could have definitely improved the figure, is if they had given those nails paint and then run the other paint application out onto the tail. Some of the splotchy black looks really nice on the figure, some not so great, because some looks more like paint errors rather than paint application or skin color. But as a whole, I really do like this coloration a lot more than the older one. I think it looks a lot closer to, you know, Rexy from Jurassic Park, as well as Rexy from Dominion, which is a huge, huge plus for this figure. We also, of course, have all the articulation you had on the older release as far as the Super Colossal Rex, which means you've got jaw articulation with the upper and lower jaw, arm articulation, leg articulation, ankle articulation, and tail articulation. You can also swallow smaller dinosaur figures and then open the little latch up in the lower part of the Rex to kind of pull those back out. So there's definitely some fun playability to this Super Colossal figure. Again, visually, it is definitely the nicest Colossal Rex we've had. So if you are interested in picking this up, I would recommend grabbing it, because you just never know with Mattel. You never know how long stuff's going to be out before it just completely disappears and then is nearly impossible to get a hold of. And I feel like many people are going to kind of pass this one up just because the Super Colossal Rex isn't exactly a new figure. It's one we've had for a long time now, so they're probably looking at it thinking, well, it's just a repaint, why would I bother? And then it's going to be a really hard figure to find at some point once it is gone from store shelves and discontinued, and I think it's, again, the most appealing version, so it'll probably have a really nice element of collectability to it. So if you are interested in picking this up, I'll include a link in the description to Target where I purchased mine, so make sure you check that link. Go grab yourself this very cool Rex, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.